A child buried under concrete. A father clutching a lifeless daughter. A grandmother whispering prayers in the ruins of a bombed-out home. Since October 2023, the war in Gaza has become a defining fault line, not just in West Asia, but in America. College campuses became front lines. Students, once voices of conscience, were branded anti-American. Ceasefire resolutions passed in student senates, echoes of empathy in institutional halls, but the response: SWAT teams in lecture halls, suspensions, deportation threats. And now, under the second Trump administration, a sweeping federal crackdown on dissent, equating pro-Gaza activism with extremism. Across the country, peaceful demonstrations are being met with arrests, surveillance, blacklists, and censorship. And from Washington, a coordinated push to criminalize sympathy and label moral outrage as national disloyalty. When the UN's top investigators resign under pressure, when Superman films ignite political firestorms, and when even the act of mourning is flagged as subversive, what kind of democracy is left? And the question we ask tonight is simple but urgent. When did caring become a crime? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. Since October 2023, the war in Gaza has become more than just a foreign policy issue. It's now a defining moral line, splitting classrooms, workplaces, and even friend groups. And for many young people in America, it's become a cause that demands action. From Harvard to the steps of the Capitol Hill, pro-Gaza encampments have sprung up. Peaceful demonstrations, sit-ins, human chains, boycotts, but increasingly, they're being met not with debate, but with arrests. Across the US, Homeland Security has deployed police to arrest student protesters. If you remember, late last year and early this year, students were the prime target. At Columbia and UCLA, riot police cleared out tents with batons and tear gas. More than 2,000 arrests, dozens of student suspensions, visa cancellations, threats of deportation, and in some cases, quiet warnings from faculty. Stay out of this or your future may suffer. This crackdown didn't evolve naturally. It was cultivated at the top. Trump administration has taken a hard line against pro-Gaza activism.
The Israeli propaganda, the Israeli strategy in the recent years found a very efficient way to silence the world, and to criminalize any critics about Israel. Namely, anyone who dares to say something bad about Israel, to criticize Israel, even Israeli friends who really care about Israel, even Jews who care about Israel. If you dare to say some critical things about Israel, immediately you are labeled as an anti-Semite. So I want to tell you that most of the critics of Israel today, not all of them, but most of the critics of Israel in the world today are people of conscience. They have nothing to do with anti-Semitism. When you see the dying babies in the hospitals of Gaza, the starving babies in the streets, the women, the children, the destruction, what are you supposed to feel? To salute to those who are responsible for it, or to scream and attack them and talk against them and criticize them? What does this has to do with anti-Semitism? Calling free Palestine is a very legitimate call. What does this have to do with anti-Semitism? So there are anti-Semitism, there is anti-Semitism, there are anti-Semites. They should be fought. Many of them use the current situation in order to come out from the closet, so to say. But by the end of the day, most of the critics about Israel today is a genuine moral critic, and I support.
A senior official from the Department of Homeland Security confirmed to multiple outlets that the administration has greenlit expanded surveillance of protest movements it labels anti-American. The Department of Education has also been pressured to investigate universities for allegedly allowing anti-Semitic speeches based on nothing more than pro-Palestinian chants. In some states, governors aligned with Trump have pushed for laws banning university funding to any group calling for a ceasefire. Legal scholars warn these measures risk gutting First Amendment protections, but that seems to be the point. White House has also quietly encouraged federal agencies to monitor Gaza protests using a post-9/11 national security framework. That means surveillance tools designed for counterterrorism are now watching college students. Digital surveillance is now a tool of this new crackdown. According to rights groups, federal agencies have ramped up social media monitoring of Gaza sympathizers. Platforms like X, TikTok, and Instagram have been used to track organizers and tag activists. A controversial website called Canary Mission compiles names and photos of pro-Palestinian students and submits them to employers, universities, and law enforcement agencies. Immigration authorities have even used Canary Mission profiles to flag student visa holders for extra screening. Speaking out for Gaza in America is no longer just protest. It's become a potential red flag. But the suppression isn't limited to campuses. Online, pro-Palestinian voices are being throttled, shadow banned, or removed entirely. Between October 2023 and September 2024, more than 5,100 cases of digital censorship against Palestinian voices were documented. Videos of bombings removed, journalists banned, hashtags like Free Palestine buried by algorithms. Tech giants say it's about misinformation and hate speech, but activists say it's silencing. Meta, Google, Amazon, TikTok all have been accused of cooperating with state requests to limit Palestine-related content. Many journalists and activists say some Gaza videos have been removed by Instagram within hours. The reason? It violated community standards. Many even say their YouTube accounts have been suspended after posting interviews from Gaza refugee camps. These aren't outliers. This is the new normal. And then, in the summer of 2025, a superhero took the stage. Superman, a blockbuster, an origin reboot, but something else too, a cultural earthquake. The story? Superman faces a war between two nations, Boravia, a militarized state, rich and backed by the US, and Jarhanpur, a poor, besieged neighbor under blockade and bombardment. Critics and fans saw the metaphor instantly. Boravia is Israel, Jarhanpur, Palestine. Arid deserts, fences, drone strikes on civilians, refugee camps, children waving Superman flags, begging for help. It all echoed Gaza. And when Superman intervenes, he doesn't fight for Boravia, he shields Jarhanpur. Many didn't like this instance. Some pundits called it anti-Israel propaganda. Others called it brave. Director James Gunn hasn't issued any statement, but Israeli supporters weren't convinced. Online, the debate exploded. Supporters said the film showed courage. Critics said it was dangerous, and all of it reinforced one point. Even fiction isn't safe when it challenges the Gaza narrative. And then came the UN resignations. Navi Pillay, Chris Sidoti, Milun Kothari. Together, they formed the United Nations Commission of Inquiry into Israeli actions in Gaza and the West Bank. Together, they accused Israel of committing acts amounting to genocide. And together, in July 2025, they resigned. The official explanation? Personal reasons. But the real trigger? Many believe it was US sanctions. Earlier that month, Secretary of State Marco Rubio blacklisted Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur on Palestine. He accused her of supporting illegitimate ICC efforts targeting US and Israeli officials. Sanctions followed. Pressure intensified, and 1 week later, the commission unraveled. These weren't fringe activists. These were respected jurists. The departure sends a chilling signal. If the US doesn't like your findings, your position is no longer safe. So who investigates now? And who holds anyone accountable? Even from within Israel, voices of alarm are rising. Former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, once a hardliner, is blasting Israel's prolonged war in Gaza. It was a rare moment of clarity. An admission not from a protester, but from the man who led the country from 2006 up till 2009. With over 20 months into a war, Olmert says this should have ended a year ago. He believes he can no longer make that case.
But over the last few weeks, a large part of the Israeli population has made it clear that the war has to stop. This is what I think. We have achieved everything that can be achieved in a military operation. At this point now, continuing the war and expanding the war may cause the death of Israeli soldiers, as it does already. It will also risk the lives of the hostages, which are still kept by Hamas, and it will kill innocent, non-involved Palestinians living in Gaza without any objective which is worth this cost. There is so much that we did already in the war in the last 22 months. We eliminated most of the important leaders of Hamas, including Yahya Sinwar and Muhammad Deif, and the chairman of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, and high command and lower commands. We destroyed most of the tunnels, most of the launchers of rockets, most of the rockets, command positions, almost everything. At this point now, after 22 months, my voice is not isolated. It reflects a growing majority of Israelis that think that we have to stop the war now and release all the hostages and make an agreement that will end the war and allow Israel to pull out from Gaza, and an interim security force made of Palestinians and Arab soldiers will take over Gaza in order to make sure that Hamas will not return again into a position of influence and power in Gaza.
But Olmert's words barely made headlines because the US news cycle has shifted from Rafah to elections, from Gaza to inflation, and amid the digital erasure, the arrests and denials, the memory of Gaza is fading. But for those still paying attention, the question remains: if saying Free Palestine gets you suspended, if investigating war crimes gets you sanctioned, if even Superman is dragged into censorship battles, then what happens to dissent?
The Prime Minister is Netanyahu, and presently he still enjoys a majority in parliament. Perhaps not too long, because just now I heard that his political partners in the cabinet decided to withdraw, and therefore he is going to lose even the majority in parliament. But he is still the Prime Minister, and it's true that the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defense say that they intend to build a humanitarian city. This is totally unacceptable. This humanitarian city is, by definition, a crime which Israel will not be able to accept the responsibility for such a crime. And I think that even the Israeli army and the chief of staff are reluctant to do it, because they think that it has no practical dimension into it. But it's true that there are cabinet ministers, and we all know that Ben-Gvir and Smotrich became very famous names across the world, which are messianic, extreme right-wingers, and they want to deport people from the north part of Gaza in order to clear it for an eventual resettlement of Israeli settlements. We will be against it, and I believe that it will not happen. But it's true that for the time being, the announcement of the Minister of Defense and of the Prime Minister in favor of such a humanitarian city is something that is on the agenda, and I hope, as I said, that it will not take place.
Let's be clear. This isn't about endorsing violence. It's not about picking sides. It's about where the grief can be public, where the sympathy can be safe, where the criticism can be allowed. It's about the erosion of space in classrooms, in timelines, in movies, and in international law. where Gaza can still be spoken of without fear. Because when criticism becomes sedition, when watching becomes suspect, when speaking becomes forbidden, we are no longer watching a war. We are watching democracy shrink, and somewhere a child in Gaza still walks barefoot to find water under drones. Their voice, their image, their plea, filtered, flagged, and forgotten. Thank you for watching Statecraft.